Well, the immigration issue came up during last night's Los Angeles mayoral debate as well. Watch.
Non-citizens, should they be allowed to vote in local elections? Is this a yes or no? Mr. Pratt?
No.
Mayor Bass?
It depends. It's not a yes or no.
Councilmember Bremen?
Yeah, I would say, again, it does depend.
Incumbent Mayor Karen Bass was also pressed on her much-maligned response to the Palisades fire. It's an issue that challenger Spencer Pratt has repeatedly attacked her on. Watch.
As mayor, I will never drain the reservoirs that we need for wildfire protection.
Mayor Bass, you have a response to that.
He's saying several things that are completely inaccurate. First of all, there was one reservoir that was out of commission. He talked about the winds. That is just completely inaccurate. If that were accurate, then the planes would have been able to fly.
She's an incredible liar. Everyone on their phones, Google it. 40 weather stations in the Pacific Palisades. It never went above 40 miles per hour. She is referencing the Altadena fire.
I have to interrupt you. No name calling,
She just
please.
lied, though.
Yeah, but no name calling.
She called me a liar.
I don't believe she did.
She said
I did not hear that.
This up.
I did not.
I'm going to get to that in a second with you, but I want to start here with the residents of Pasadena, the victim of the Palisades fire in part. Talk to us about what you saw there and what boots on ground are saying about Spencer Pratt and his accurate accusations against Mayor Bass and her woeful, dismal response to the fire.
Well, I would, the way you framed that, and you know, I love
leading question.
Yes. Well, no, he's not accurate. The Santa Ynez Reservoir is the only one that was closed. It was closed for repair in in California. I live in Los Angeles. My home was burned in the Eaton Canyon fire, which started at 6 p.m. as the Palisades fire had started in the morning. The Palisades fire is due to arson. And I got to be careful with the wording here because of the huge lawsuit everybody in Eaton Canyon has against Southern California Edison. But it's alleged because of the winds, which were over 100 miles per hour. And I live 45 minutes from the Palisades. The wind doesn't go from 30 to 100 or vice versa with that geographic space. Look. The reservoir in the winter is when they are repaired throughout the state of California because, especially in Southern California, that's our rainy season. And like I said, these were not natural reasons for fire. No politician, Democrat or Republican, is clairvoyant and has a crystal ball and can predict that. One. Two, it also was determined if the reservoir was filled, it still would not have been enough. Three, she is right about the air. I saw with my own eyes helicopters that could not get back. The winds pushed them back like paper, they were so flimsy. And when you talk to the firefighters and the first responders, it doesn't matter their politics. They will tell you that these accusations are false. And lastly, I would say there are a lot of people, both victims of the Palisades and myself, that don't appreciate Spencer Pratt and the victimization and using this and using what's happened to these victims to further his platform as a politician. And he doesn't have solutions going forward. And that's a big problem. And then numbers. Numbers. I just want to say.
He is a victim. And when you've been victimized, there's no way to exploit your own victimization. It's called putting your hand in the air and saying this happened.
I'm telling you what the community is saying, that they feel exploited by what he is
saying.
Kayleigh,
I wanted to come to you on that point, which is that respectfully, many residents are grateful they finally have an advocate in Spencer Pratt. And they talk about that as frightening as the natural circumstances or felonious circumstances were. It would have been mitigated by competent leadership, both at the gubernatorial and the mayor level. Do you want to talk about that, or do you want to talk about homelessness?
I want to talk about that for sure. Okay. Because Leslie, you know, you're one resident. I'm sorry for what happened to you and that you were a victim. Spencer Pratt, a victim. I'm sorry for what happened to him. But when you look at the flash poll after the debate, 80% of people said Spencer Pratt won. Those are people who watched because they are victims too. California did not have a perfect fire response, and to suggest that they did or had anywhere near that is preposterous. I worked for President Donald J. Trump in 2020, who I heard him say, California needs to clean the brush. Right. He said this in 2020. This was highly predictable. It could have been mitigated. California didn't. They're incompetent. Look at their streets. That's all you have to do, a cursory glance. Spencer Pratt was phenomenal last night. He prosecuted the case. He has laid out a model that we as the GOP, we cannot surrender blue states. We can't surrender blue cities. We have to stand up and fight for conservatives everywhere they exist, and he has done that to great effect. Phenomenal model that everyone should look at. And Republicans in Congress, wake up. get a little Spencer Pratt in you, because you just heard what they're about to do. Healthcare for illegal immigrants, potentially voting for illegal immigrants, and you guys can't even get the Save America Act across the finish line? Give me a break. Wake up, congressional Republicans. Become Spencer Pratt.
Love it. Harris, Kayleigh mentioned the streets, and there was a moment, especially between Spencer Pratt and incumbent Mayor Bass, where they talked about it. So Spencer Pratt, they're on the stage, they're talking about the drug and homeless crisis plaguing Los Angeles. We've all seen it. And the thing is, I've covered it for Fox. Skid Row has been there for decades. So you want to talk about a throwaway population? What is Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass?
Look at MacArthur Park and the news today.
Exactly.
It's a disaster.
So these mouthpieces saying that they care about the underserved communities, but interestingly, only if it's under the rug and doesn't spill out over the borders. But let's get that moment up, and then we'll have your reaction after. Go ahead.
The reality is, no matter how many beds you give these people, they are on super meth. They are on fentanyl. The DEA statistic says 93% of this is a drug addiction problem. Nithya, Councilwoman Robbins' plan for treatment first, I will go below the Harbor Freeway tomorrow with her, and we can find some of these people she's going to offer treatment for. She's going to get stabbed in the neck. These people do not want a bed. They want fentanyl or super meth.
This is not someone in Spencer Pratt who has not experienced things. I know a lot of people say, oh, he's Hollywood. Well, he's the form of Hollywood that's out there doing reality. He's out there talking with people, and he brought that to the stage last night. And I agree with you, Kayleigh. Republicans need to catch this wind. They really do. It took them forever to get to the point where we could get the DHS funded. And you have reconciliation. You may have to use it. Imagine if you don't win both houses. Like, I think that what you're saying is right. What he has is more than a vision. He has the fight within him to go get it done. And I remember when President Trump, in his first term, you were so right to bring that up, was not only talking about the deforestation that was needed in California, but he was the first person after the fires to say that, well, wait a minute, the water wasn't running. Right? And I respect you, Leslie. You have that first-person experience. And I remember the pain that you described to me personally that you and your family had gone through. But you needed all things to be running. I know that they winterize I lived in Los Angeles. I know what they do with the reservoirs, but it wasn't a rainy enough season to do that. You have to make on-the-moment decisions about not just follow a routine. That wasn't the season to do it. So when they turn off the spigot for one reservoir, yeah, you bet it matters when you didn't have enough built up to sustain even a smaller fire potentially. So you've got all of that. Spencer Pratt, I'll just say it, is where it's at. He doesn't have that in anything of an ad. But that's what I was thinking last night. They were all fighting with each other, which is what we saw among the governor's race, because their ideas are stale. So now you want to attack the facts rather than what? I mean, come with your own policy.
Attack the facts and attack the delivery, David, and that's where I wanted to go with you, which is the messaging and the packaging that we have to be faced with that is shoved down our throats. What I mean by that is, as the substantive conversation of the debate unfolded, which was lives being discarded, lives being lost in the fire, lost to drugs, lost to homelessness, and et cetera, we have a moderator that cares about words and verbiage and civility, breaking in, wasting everyone's time to say, don't use the verb lie, when he's trying to say, listen, lady, people are dying. Let me help fix and save the state. And yet that is the trash that we are subjected to by these moderators and by these members of the left.
And by the way, the moderator was someone I picked up on that, because calling somebody a liar when they actually lie is not attacking them. It's calling out a fact. And here's the problem in California. All the things, and to Leslie's points included, afterwards, what followed? What was the lack of response? Coding, approvals, zoning, getting people back in their homes, getting the people in St. Mel's Parish who lost 97% or something that were affected by this fire. Where is their help? Where are the poor neighborhoods that didn't get all the attention like Hollywood did, or the rich homes in the Palisades?
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.